Hi everyone, this is Dr. Barry. In this video, I'm going to go over how to fill out the Business Risk Management Survey. And a couple of things I want to start out with just to lay the groundwork here. First of all, it's important that you watch the entire video. It is going to be a bit long, but I need you to know exactly how I want you to fill out this, both in terms of the format and what the question is actually asking and how I want you, in some cases, to prompt the business owner. And secondly, it is important that you're the one actually filling in the survey. I don't want you handing the business owner the survey. In fact, I don't want the business owner even seeing it because, again, it could create some confusion and you are being asked to prompt the business owner in a certain way. The third thing just to mention is that you'll see as we go through the survey there are a lot of drop-down boxes. And so if you're printing out the survey and taking it to the business location, which it is preferable that you're actually doing it face-to-face, you might actually need to write out some of the drop-downs or just be aware of what the options are for some of the answers, and then you can just jot down what they said and later go in and select the drop-downs. But I think this will actually help both with the speed of you being able to fill in the survey, and certainly it'll be uploadable so that you can send it to me. I also think that the best way to probably do this would be if you have a laptop and you can take it to the business location, or in some cases you can just do it over the phone, particularly if it's a business owner you know pretty well. Let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do is to type in the business name right here, and it's important. This is a point that I need to make that wasn't always done in the brainstorm. You need to do what I just did, which is to highlight. Let me do it one more time to highlight this. In some cases you won't have to do that, in most cases actually, but you'll have to highlight this so that when you start typing in, it types over what I had typed in, prompting you on what it's asking. So that's pretty easy. Just make sure that you do delete what I had put there and that you type right over it in that spot. Next thing, you're going to select the date, and I'm not very picky about this. If you actually surveyed the business owner a week before that, that's fine. Just select the date that you're actually filling in the survey, and notice there's a prompt for you. Okay, the next question, just to start the business profile, which is a lot of the information about the business, not necessarily related to risk management, but in what parish or county does the business have its main operation? And this box is actually a combination. You can type in or you can select from the drop down. And what I did is I just created a bunch of options, which are all parishes, where I found that most of the businesses you selected are in one of these parishes. Obviously there are exceptions, so let's just pick Ouachita. But if you did pick a county, or you have a business that's located outside of Louisiana and it's in a county, just type in that county. But I'm going to go back to Ouachita. Approximately how long has the business been in operation? And you'll see there's a drop down for that. Now, if the business has been in operation for 6 months, which there's two spots really, you could put this either 3 to 6 months or 6 months to a year, do 3 to 6 months for that, because that just reflects that it's a newer business. Then you're asking them if they're the respondent. Just to pause for a minute on this first page is going to take me a while to get through, but after we get through the first page, I'll move past a lot of these questions without needing to explain them. But this first page has a lot of things I need to explain. So, are you the respondent or person answering the questions, the business owner or co-owner? The strong preference is that the person answering the questions is the owner. In almost every case over the 5 years that I've done this, the answer is yes. But there have been a few cases, and usually it's best if you as a student ask me about this, where the business owner isn't really the person making the decisions, or maybe is not available at all. A person who is perhaps not a co-owner is actually one that makes most of the decisions about the business. And so in some cases it might be no. Here's a good time to point out that these aren't kind of mutually exclusive. If you do select no and then you realize, oh no, I meant yes, you'll have to unclick the no. Number 4, if the respondent did answer no, then what is their current role? Here's another good point. Every question should be answered, even if it's not applicable. Because I said that the person filling out the survey is the business owner, I put yes there. So when I ask if they answered no, what is his primary role? I'm still going to answer this question. Just put NA, not applicable, because the respondent is the owner. All right, how many individuals own this business, including the respondent, if applicable? If the respondent is the owner is what that's actually saying. And actually, in this case, I just need you to type this in. If there's just one owner, you would just type in 1. If the person filling out the survey is the owner, you would just type in 1. And same thing here, but let me explain this employees. You're looking for non-contract employees, so if they're hired as temp workers or subcontracted from another business, you would not count them. So there's a place for full-time and part-time, and in general, part-time we think of as 30 hours or less. So anything over 30 hours would be probably considered full-time. For our purposes, that's what we'll do. So you have 2 full-time and maybe 1 part-time. And notice how I just highlighted that and it just took out the prompt. All right, now we're going to look at number 7. And this one is going to take a little bit of time because here you're actually going to have to look up the OSHA code or SIC code of the business. And I've given you the website at which you can find this. So you're going to want to go ahead and look in here, and I would recommend that you do this before you actually do the survey, or you could do it even after. So I just did control click and go right to this site. And what I want to do here is to just show you some examples of the SIC codes or OSHA codes that you might use given the businesses that you've selected to be your businesses. Just real quickly, obviously some of you have chosen farms, and so for example agricultural production crops, you can click on that, and if let's say you pick soybeans, the SIC code you'll type in, or OSHA code, is 0116. If the farm has multiple different crops, then just pick the one that is the largest crop for that farm. But let's go back to this page. All right, there's a few construction, so let's go ahead and look at this one. Building construction, general contractor single family houses is 1521 right here. General contractors, industrial buildings and warehouses. And you can actually click on these and get a lot more detail about what kinds of things this would include. So you would put 1541 if the business that you're serving is involved in any of these areas of construction. But let's go back to the main screen there. A few of you are doing manufacturing or transportation or wholesale trade, but here retail trade, finance, insurance and real estate, and services are where probably the majority of your businesses are going to fall. Okay, so let's look at retail trade just for a minute. Many of you picked restaurants, so eating and drinking places right here, and that encapsulates a whole lot. If the business is primarily an eating place as opposed to a place that serves alcohol, you would pick 5812. If the business is a bar, nightclub, a tavern, a wine bar, or saloon, then you would pick one of these. Another one that's good to show you here is miscellaneous retail. So this would include right here a drugstore. So a drugstore or pharmacy, if you go in, you'll see that includes pharmacy, apothecaries. Okay, that's going to be 5912. Liquor stores here, sporting goods, etc. Now, here's a good time to point out that you might actually not find exactly what you're looking for in these descriptions. So you would have to choose miscellaneous. So if you have a retail store that's miscellaneous or not found in those other descriptions, click on that and you'll see that it gives a lot of examples here. Some really good examples such as pet food stores or pet shops, cosmetic stores, candle shops. When we go back to the survey, I'll show you this again, but if you do, any of the not elsewhere classifieds are going to have 99 at the end. And whenever you pick one that has a 99, I need you to tell me what the business actually is. Hopefully it falls into one of these descriptions here. And if it's something that doesn't, just write that in on the survey. I'll show you where. Let's go back to finance, insurance, and real estate. And you'll see insurance agents, brokers, and service. That's going to include a lot of yours. So that's 6411. Let's go to services. You see personal services, business services. Let's look at personal services. That includes beauty shops and barber shops. So a lot of you are doing beauty shops and barber shops, but you can take a look here. And sometimes students will find that when they look at the SIC OSHA codes, that they end up thinking of other businesses to survey. So you might spend a little time here if one of your businesses doesn't work out. And let's go to health services. So you see here medical doctors. So all of these physicians, gynecologists, psychiatrists, all of that falls into the 8011. That's a lot there. Possibly a home health service, a nursing care facility, dentist, okay, which would include orthodontists, periodontist, etc. Legal services, law offices, lawyers. Hotels. A couple of you did do hotels and motels, same classification, 7011. I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick a restaurant since I did have a donut shop. So I'll just type over top of this 5812. And here is where you'll describe the business not elsewhere classified. And it will say not elsewhere classified, but it will have a 99 at the end. All right, the next question also I want to spend a little time on. Which of the following is used or done as a critical part of running this business? The rule of thumb is that if this is destroyed or incapacitated, it would result for the business having at least 1 day of downtime. So the way to approach the business owner with this question is to basically repeat what I just explained to you and ask them if any of these things in this checklist are destroyed, would it result in 1 day of lost revenue or downtime for the business? So for example, is the business relying on a computer? Many are, but if you think about, for example, my donut shop, even if a computer is used for certain things, it may not cause them to have to actually shut down. So I'm going to answer these questions as if I'm talking about my donut shop. And if any of you have any questions as you are going back and filling in the answers after you've talked to your business about what's the appropriate answer, or even before you talk to the business, please let me know, because this is one of the more challenging answers to fill out, but it's very important. Delivery and conveyance is whether or not things have to be delivered to other people from other sources. So for example, if I need special ingredients delivered to me, then I would check yes. Or maybe I cater my donuts to parties and things like that. So if I need to get to other places or my employees need to get to other places, the answer is also yes. Probably for most businesses, there is some need for transportation. So in other words, if the business lost their car or even the business owner's personal car, that might make the business unable to deliver or get their materials. All right, the next thing is specialized raw materials, which is related to the last thing I said. If there's a special flour or special mix that I need to order that I can't just run out to Walmart or Brookshire's and get, the grocery store, then I put yes. With respect to the internet, is it imperative that I have internet access, which is different possibly from having computer access? And in my case, as a donut shop, probably no. I don't really need to have internet access to do my job. Specialized equipment, for my donut shop, there probably is a specialized machine that actually makes the donuts, so I'm going to check yes on that. Inventory, is there an inventory? Well, as a donut shop, no, I don't need to maintain an inventory because I make donuts every single morning. However, if an inventory is critical to the business, in other words, if your inventory were destroyed, would you not be able to continue the business? And possibly for most businesses, this might be no. Maybe you have a 3-day supply of downtime of inventory, but if your inventory were destroyed in just a couple of days, your business would be incapacitated. So in that case, you would check yes. Specialized storage, for me, it might be a refrigerator or some kind of temperature controlled, similar to equipment here, but if it's storage that I can't just go out and get at Home Depot or Best Buy, then I'm going to put yes. Computer-based contacts, which might be somewhat related to me having my computer. But if there's a contact list that is on my computer, and if somehow that is destroyed, would that result in downtime for me? And for a lot of businesses, that might be yes. Now, my donut shop, no, because my customers just come to me without me contacting them. Do I need a landline telephone? For my business, probably not. But if it's an accounting firm that has a certain number, a small accounting partnership, or a lot of different companies actually do need that landline, whereas most of us, if we need to call out, have cell phones. But if people are calling in, they might need that landline number to be able to do business. What about a written contact list? You'd be surprised at how many people say yes to this, that they don't have their contact list digitized or electronic version. I don't need a contact list, so I'm going to put no. Water flow. Do I need water? Like a restaurant most of the time does need water. Many manufacturing organizations actually use water in their processing. But for me, yes, because there's some water in donuts. And what about a body of water? Usually I'm talking about transportation here. We actually added this question years ago when we realized that many farms were dependent on the Mississippi River to get their product from one place to another, whether it's the grain elevator to the warehouse, or it might be yes. For me, it's going to be no, actually. I'm not dependent on a body of water. Okay, and then access to others is sort of similar to delivery and conveyance, but the difference here, delivery and conveyance, we're thinking about the mode of transportation to get from one place to another to your customer. Access is a little bit different. Access is, do your customers have access to your, say, storefront? Do they have access to your warehouse if they need to deliver materials to the warehouse? Because you have to think about that, particularly for any kind of retail store or a restaurant, you would need access. You would need your customers to be able to get in the store in order to buy things, in order to spend money in the store. So certainly for this donut shop, the answer is yes. So a way that this might be blocked would be just road construction or plumbing bursts, and police prevent customers from coming onto your property or coming near your property. So for almost any retail, even a service business such as an accounting firm, if you need to see your customers face to face, you would need access. Let's go to gross sales range. So it says, please provide a range of the business's gross sales in the last fiscal year. And I know that this can be a little bit sensitive of a question for some businesses. I really haven't had many students tell me they had a real problem with this. But those who have said, I really was uncomfortable asking this question, or they seemed very uncomfortable answering this, that was actually one of the reasons that we went to this range. We used to actually just ask them to give us the exact number. And most businesses are not uncomfortable giving a number in one of these three ranges. So if absolutely they are uncomfortable giving this number, either just guess or talk to me about it and maybe we can figure something out. The next question is this a home-based business? And one of the students has asked me whether or not home-based businesses are appropriate, and my answer is they absolutely are, because they have risks too. And sometimes it's the home-based businesses that are less aware of their risks and maybe aren't managing them appropriately. So we want to know if they're home-based, because that tells us a lot of things about their risks right there. So yes, nearly everything is done from home. But if even 10% of the business is actually conducted out of the home, then you would click this one. And on the other hand, you might say no, nearly all business is done away from home. If just a few percentages of the business owner's time are spent in the home, maybe calling customers, then it wouldn't be considered even a partially home-based business. It would be no. Nearly all business is done away from the home. But there are some businesses where maybe a lot of appointments are made out of the home and bookkeeping is done from the home. In that case, it would be partially. More than 10% of the business is conducted in and out of the home. So in my case, it's not a home-based business. So if the response to question 10 was no, does the business primarily rent or own a building? And what I'm asking here is, if the business is not home-based, do you rent or own? And you can ask it that way. You certainly don't have to, nor should you ask these questions exactly as I have written them. You should ask them in a way that you feel comfortable and that you think the business owner will most understand. And that's just very important in getting our most accurate and most complete survey. You might just say, do you rent or own? All right. And they say, I rent some, but I primarily own. You would go to this. And I'm going to say for this business, I actually rent the building. If the business is home-based, then you would just check this one and You would have to uncheck this if you accidentally checked it. But I rent the donut shop. At how many locations do business operations regularly take place, not including the owner's home, because we already asked about that. And so we want you to just type in a number here. For most small businesses, this is 1, but it's possible that they do have a plant, maybe a warehouse, a significant warehouse, where inventory is stored, and so that would be considered a business operation. In that case, you would say 2. But for mine, I'm just going to say 1. The next thing related to this is the business engaged in any separate or distinct business operations for which multiple insurance policies are needed? We need to know this because what we have found is that business owners sometimes will purchase a small business owner's policy, or a BOP, and then they'll also purchase a general liability policy, a GL. And we're trying to understand why they would need to do that. And the reason they would need to do it that would actually make sense is that they are engaged in, say, a specific project where they needed to go out and purchase a general liability policy or maybe a commercial liability policy. And so for mine, I'm just going to say no. All I do is make and sell donuts. The next one, please approximate the business's property range of values. This is usually not as sensitive as gross sales, but sometimes it is. And you'd be surprised at how often these numbers aren't in the same range. I'm going to say less than 100,000 because I don't own a building. Now going down, I'm just going to briefly explain these questions. These questions are directed to the business owner, but again, the student must still ask the questions and fill out the survey. The way they're worded, though, is as if you're asking the question directly to the business owner. So, why did you start this business? And you're going to put an X in this one next to all that apply. I'm not going to read every single one of them, but you do need to read them, in this case, to the business owner because we want to know which of these do apply. And then number 16 is, of those above reasons, what's the top reason that you started the business? I'm going to go ahead and say, I just love making and selling what I do. I saw an opportunity to make money. I want to pass the business along to my children. I don't know that I'd be making a big difference selling donuts, but so of those above reasons, what's the most significant reason? And maybe for me, it was just that I wanted to make money. And my second reason was maybe that I wanted to pass it along to my children. Okay, how long did you think about or dream about this business? And you might need to prompt business owners on some of these questions, and they say maybe 6 months, I don't know. They might then start talking, let them talk themselves through this because, for example, I might say, well, it was only seriously 6 months, but I really did start researching it about 5 years ago. So they really did spend more than 5 years thinking about it. Okay, number 19, did you or you and a partner start this business as opposed to buying it from someone else? This is just asking, are you the original owner, the originator of the business? And I'm going to say yes for my business. And if you did not start this business, how did you acquire it? And so you just select an answer from a drop-down. Well, I said I did start the business, so I'm going to select that. Remember, every time, even when the answer is not applicable, as it is in this case, there's still a prompt, an answer that's appropriate. Number 21, how many additional owners are there? And from here down, I think that most of this is self-explanatory. This question here at number 33, if you have another business, how does it compare to the current business? Here again is another, please check all that apply if you have more than one business. So if you only have one, you'll just check here. If you do have other businesses, maybe it's the same business. Maybe it is a Fox's Pizza and you have two in different locations. Or maybe you have a somewhat similar business but not completely similar, maybe two fast food restaurants. Or maybe it's something that complements the current business, like a farm and a trucking business, or a catering business and a restaurant, that type of thing. Okay, and again, most of this is self-explanatory. This section is asking about business partners. Even if you have no business partners, you can still answer every question. All right, but let's come down to the loss table. In this table, you're going to select the number of losses that have occurred over the last 5 years. So for our purposes, this would be 2009 to 2014. And what you're going to ask is, have you had any employee theft losses? How many in the last 5 years? And that's the total number. We don't want a per year number, but we want the total number. And you may need to let them think about this a while. They may even need to check their records. Again, don't hand them the survey, but you may need to prompt them. I've had a lot of students who actually knew the business pretty well, and the business owner will say, well, none. And the surveyor will say, didn't you tell me you had a theft 2 years ago? Sometimes it takes them a while to recall the losses that they've had. Business owners tend to have a short memory when it comes to risk management sometimes. All business owners. Any losses over 1,000, if any of those individually, not collectively, were over 1,000, then you would put yes. And again, I think that this is self-explanatory. Now we're at the risk control portion of the survey. The first thing you want to do, and this is the only section that you're going to skip a whole section if it's not applicable. You'll already know if they use computers. If you check this box, because you know they don't use computers, you don't even have to ask them any of these questions. Then you're just going to jump down to the next section, employee risk management. But the same thing, you're already going to know whether they have any employees. If they don't, click here and skip down to business continuity. And you'll say, does the business have a written emergency plan? Yes, no, they don't know, etc. It's just so you know, the difference between an emergency preparedness plan and a business continuity plan. A business continuity plan is much broader than an emergency preparedness plan by most people's standards. For our purposes, as you do these surveys, as you conduct them, emergency preparedness is just the immediate response in the event of usually a catastrophe, or it could just be a catastrophe for that business. For example, a major fire at the business. But a business continuity plan is more about what you're going to do after losses occur and how to maintain the business over time in spite of losses, including the loss of key personnel. Now we're going to go all the way down to insurance survey, and we're almost finished. So you're going to ask first how the business owner found the majority of the insurance they've purchased on the business. The first option is they don't have any insurance. So you have that option. But let's say that they purchased it from their homeowners or auto insurance agent, which is really quite common. From what type of agent does the business owner purchase the insurance? You might have to lead them a little on this. If they purchase the insurance from State Farm, Allstate, Farm Bureau, Farmers, American National Shelter, or any other captive insurance company, and I put a lot of them there. Nationwide is also uses the captive agency system. They don't operate in Louisiana, but they do in other states. But if they purchased it from an independent agent, that's Travelers, Hartford, Liberty Mutual. Those are the ones, and a lot of companies you've never heard of probably, that the independent agent represents. Does the business owner have any insurance through the surplus lines, excess and surplus lines? So they could say yes, no, not sure what that is, have heard of it, but don't know if the business has surplus lines. Which of the following types of policies do insure this business? And so you're going to go through these one by one and just click yes or no, or not sure. So pretty simply. Then in this next section, we're asking why they don't have insurance when they don't. But again, you're going to say either the business owner said they had that type of insurance or is not sure. When you select this answer, either the business is insured by a BOP or the owner is not sure, you're saying that the business owner selected yes or not sure. Because if they have a BOP, obviously they don't need to tell you why they don't have one. And if they answered not sure, they really can't answer why they don't have a BOP because they're not sure they don't. The possible responses are the business doesn't have the exposures covered by the BOP. The business has other insurance for those exposures. Some exposures are covered elsewhere, while others the business does not have. So this is really a combination of the two previous, mainly because the insurance agent didn't recommend it, because the insurance is overpriced, because the owner doesn't expect to have the types of losses covered by those policies, or just they can't or don't want to spend the money right now. Actually, I'm going to say that I have a GL. So I'm going to say that I have other insurance that it covers the exposures that are covered by the BOP. If the respondent said the business is not covered by a commercial property policy, please indicate why. And I actually said I am. Same with the GL, which is why I didn't need a BOP, because I have the CPP and the GL. Now, not all of these responses are the same, so take a look at all of them. But a lot of them are very similar. But when you get down to, for example, workers' compensation, the possibilities are, okay, yes, either you have it or you're not sure. Mainly because the insurance agent didn't recommend it, that's the same. Just don't want to spend the money. Or the business pays for on-the-job injuries out of pocket, which is really not allowed, but the business is a qualified self-insurer, which is allowed, but would be highly unlikely for a small business. Let's just say I have the insurance. The rest of these are pretty similar. The flood insurance one is a bit different. Okay, so you have it because you said you're not eligible. Let me go down. Because it's overpriced, because you don't expect to have floods, etc. So in this next section, almost the end, let me just read this. In some cases, it is important to understand why the business is insured by two policies that cover some of the same exposures. There can be very appropriate reasons for this, but it might also be an indication of the business owner purchasing unnecessary insurance. So that's why we're asking these questions. We want to find out if they truly are over-insuring or not. Let's be clear. You're not going to even ask these questions if the business owner said no to either one of these, the BOP or the CPP. You're only going to ask the question if the business owner said yes. Otherwise, you're just going to come in here and say the business doesn't have both. But if they did have two yeses, then you're going to tell us why. Because maybe the BOP excluded wind and hail, and so they needed an additional CPP to cover just the wind and hail. Maybe a loan or contract requires the business to have a separate CPP for a particular property. So there's a few different reasons. And then what about the BOP and the GL? Very similar reasons. Maybe because a contract requires the business to have a separate GL for the particular project. And same with the BOP and the business interruption policy. Then the last four questions are just about health insurance. First of all, do they have it? If they do, is it provided through their spouse's employment or other employment? Which could be maybe they also work at a full-time job that provides health insurance. So you would say yes. If not, have you used the federal exchange under the Affordable Care Act? In other words, if you don't have insurance through your other employment or your spouse's employment, did you use the federal exchange? And do you feel that you have been provided enough information about the ACA? Do you understand it? I wanted to go back here and just quickly talk about this section on the primary business owner information. The second two questions here, number 44 and 45, can sometimes be a little bit sensitive. You're asking the age range of the primary business owner, and so it is a range, which is better than actually asking their age. I am okay if you're really uncomfortable asking this if you estimate, or if you, since you're going to ask how long they've been in business, you might be able to estimate it based on some of their other answers. I do want to know their general age. We're trying to differentiate between very young and middle and older. Do the best you can on that, but don't embarrass them. What is the highest education? Same thing here. And as a suggestion, if you're not comfortable asking this question, you might prompt them in different ways, just asking them where they went to high school, if they went to ULM, for example, or if you're closer to Baton Rouge, if they went to LSU, and that might result in you being able to find out. So that's just some last minute tips. Always know that if you have any questions as you're filling out these surveys, please shoot me an email and ask me. And I wish you the best of luck, but know that I'm always here to help.